Hello friends and welcome to patch 7.32D. This is going to be a quick highlight, especially emphasizing the overall meta and supports. Not so much of a core player, so not really going to talk about that too much. Second recording because it crashed last time, which is probably a sign that I should have been faster about it. So let's do that. General changes. The one you got to know is that flag bearer creep bonus gold. So anyone in the range gets an extra 10 gold. So 20 value now for most lanes, which are like 2 versus 2, right? If you get the creep, you both get 10 gold. That's 20 for your team. If you deny it, that's 20 away from the enemy team. Every other general change is just like a patch fixing bugs in the game. So they're not really like balance changes, except for the fact that, like, you know, heroes are better if they're working properly. Or maybe worse if, you know, a bug was in their favor. But most of these are just bug fixes, so they're not really going to like massively change the meta, in my opinion. So you don't really have to worry about any of that. It's mainly this flag bearer creep change, which, you know, 10 gold is not necessarily game changing, but it does add up over the course of the laning stage, right? 10 gold every time, or like I said, 10 gold denied from the enemy. So I think what this will lead to is, we've been saying it for a while, and I've been saying that for a while, but stronger lanes, as always, stay in the lane, securing creeps. I kind of talked about this in the 7.32C video, how to be a good support that I kind of released recently. Fortunately, I don't think much changed from that video. In fact, I think it became even more so the case. So I was holding off going too in-depth in that video because I wasn't sure if the patch would come out and change everything. Looks like it hasn't really. So I will then go more in-depth into that in the future a little bit. Right now, we'll do more patch exploration, but once it settles, I'll revisit that point and explain it more. But I think it's kind of just like reinforce that point. I think like staying in the lane more in general and playing the lane, going for denies, securing these kind of creeps, and then doing pulls as you can, but only like really if you have to. Obviously there's room for like you know, differences to every game, but I think that's a safe approach right now, especially with this change. Let's go into item changes. First, let's actually jump ahead to WRAITH PACT. So WRAITH PACT was the best item of the last patch. I'd say debatable, but I don't know if it was that debatable. Now, of course, your mileage may vary, right? Depending on your MMR, you don't necessarily follow the pro meta, but it does kind of like bleed down, right? And I think WRAITH PACT even made its way down to the lower ranks. And it was so good that if you built it and the enemy didn't build it, you were just kind of winning. So everyone had to build WRAITH PACT. And if everyone's building WRAITH PACT, which is a very strong aura item, why not just go further into that, right? Why not get summons to work with the WRAITH PACT? Why not build other aura items? So because WRAITH PACT was so good, it was actually kind of defining what a lot of people were doing. Now that it's changed, the nerf is that it will not reduce magic and pure damage. It only affects physical damage, which can still be from spells because some spells do physical damage, but the vast majority do magical or pure, I would say. So this is good because WRAITH PACT was just good at all points. You could rush the item first, and let's say you're like an offlaner doing it. You'll probably finish around like the 15-minute mark if you're not building too many small items, but maybe like 15 to 20 minutes, right? At that stage, maybe even 10 to 15, 20 minutes, right? At that stage of the game, supports are probably like level 7, a little higher than that. So they're hitting their like first level 4 spell and their ultimate. Mids are maybe hitting like almost level 2 ultimate, or their second like spell that is level 4. And in Dota, you level your nukes first because that's when they're relatively the strongest, because spells don't scale very well in this game for most heroes. Now it's in the game, so some heroes do, but most of us don't. And so the nukes are actually the strongest, the earliest in the game. WRAITH PACT would finish around the same time, make that hero tankier because it gave them health and armor, and then just reduce all the damage you did. So it was like taking away a skill point or 2 for some heroes and just severely nerfing your damage in that early part of the game. And then it continued to be good into the late game where right clickers were scaling up. Your carry's finally ready. Start doing like 1,000 damage crits. Bring that down to like 700. Okay, so WRAITH PACT was just good at all points. You could rush it. And like I said, because you're already building this aura item that's really good together with certain heroes, why not just heavily commit to that? It's being nerfed now. So although it's still good against physical damage, and Vlad's has always been like, you know, a fine item, I don't think you'll see first item WRAITH PACTs anymore as much unless it's a really good game for it. I think what you're going to see is maybe a Vlad's in the early game if it's a good game for it, but then you only finish WRAITH PACT later when the carries are starting to like really join into fights and like contribute that physical damage. I think besides that, though, people will, at least for now, we're going to try not building it because I think everyone's tired of it. So that opens up other possibilities. And I think it could go one of two ways. One is everyone's all in on auras, but different auras. So actually all these items, they're all buffs to everything here. And you'll notice many of these are other aura early grouping items. So Wraith Pact was not like the only contributor to what the meta was. Other things that we've talked about before are things like Roshan having scaling value, so it's better to like snowball early and then get that, along with like strong lanes. So strong laning approach into early active, get Roshan, stuff like that. Those are still in the game. So I kind of think that part will still stay the same. We all still kind of want to do that stuff. But Wraith Pact is not the answer for it anymore because it's been nerfed. We're going to go to things like drums, the mech, which isn't on here, but has been buffed in past patches. And now Guardian Greaves as well getting a buff. Pipe, also its own buff. Veil being a little better. Drums being a little better. All of these, like, even without the buffs, you weren't building them because they weren't Wraith Pact. Like, if you build a mech and they build a Wraith Pact, they're winning. So you also had to build the Wraith Pact. So whoever your aura builder was always started here and then maybe did the other things. But you also had to choose between like BKB and Blink, right? So many of these other auras were not being picked up as much. But like I said, now that this is down, I think we'll see a lot more exploration into other auras. Or now that not everyone is forced into this aura beginning, which leads to more auras, maybe we just don't go into auras at all. So heroes like Axe, who would much rather build Vanguard and Blade Mail, and they actually fell to the side because those aren't Wraith Pact. Now that they don't need the Wraith Pact, they can build those items, and Blade Mail's buffed, and Vanguard itself not buffed, but the Crimson Guard is buffed. So I think you can see more options now from heroes who didn't want to go Wraith Pact. Other items that aren't on here, but just like, other classic early game items. Yules, Four Staffs, Glimmers, for supports who, if their offlaner wasn't building Wraith Pact, they had to build the Wraith Pact. That's why you had to see like support Mirana doing that kind of stuff, right? Maybe more supports can now go back to those kind of items instead. Rush like the Aether, or maybe they will do things like drums, mech, and Veil. So these item changes, along with the singular general change, I don't think the meta will shift massively. I think it's just going to change how we approach it, which is that instead of building Wraith Pact, we're going to try other auras. Or like I said, maybe it's the other route, maybe we don't go into auras as much, but I personally think we'll still be going into auras. So without even talking about the hero changes, I will be trying strong laning supports who build either drums, mech, or Veil. That will be just personally what I'm going to try for right now. I will let you guys know probably in the next couple days how it's working out. We're going to go into a couple of the like bigger hero changes, but I mean, it's a couple hours in the patch. I'm not going to lie to you guys, right? As much as I want to talk and analyze this stuff, like, it's better to just see how it plays out, right? We all have to try this stuff, see what works, and like copy and mimic and everything like that, right? So instead of wasting a ton of time talking too much about it right now, let's keep it short and sweet and just emphasize some heroes that I think are going to look good. First off, though, screw Arc Warden. He's been nerfed. Haha, excellent. Axe, like I said, with the Vanguard and Blade Mail changes, should be looking better. I'm going to try support Bounty Hunter and probably drums, but maybe the mech. Maybe the Veil if it's good for that. But he keeps getting buffed, and I keep thinking it should be good. However, I think he's not good at dealing with summons, and he is not a summons hero himself. And those were the best with Wraith Pact. And yeah, I think like the track and like the strong laning stage, all that makes sense for the early grouping meta. But if you can't deal with like the most meta thing, which is Wraith Pact, you fall off. So now that Wraith Pact has fallen off, I think Bounty Hunter like has a bit more room, plus another little buff on him, right? So he has to be like, we have to be getting to a Bounty Hunter point, right? I'm going to play him. I like Bounty Hunter. CM, she was pretty strong last patch. This is a nerf to her, but only the people outside the radius, which is frequently many of the heroes. But, excuse me, I think still with this idea of early grouping, Crystal Maiden is still really good for that. The drums buildup is a classic for her. She actually doesn't even mind Veil that much either. So I think both those items could be good. Or like I said, maybe she can actually build Four Staff and Glimmer again, the classics. So I think Crystal Maiden can still be good. Maybe she won't be like people were first phasing her in pro scene, right? So maybe she's not quite at that point, but if you like Crystal Maiden, I think it'll still be perfectly fine to get away with it. Dark Willow is getting buffed. She doesn't really build the aura items we were talking about too much. She likes things like Yules and Blink to be very annoying and to set up her stuff. So I think if the meta goes the way of like, we're free from auras, you can do other things, I do think Dark Willow will start to go up in stock. But if not, you can still play her, especially if your team has like already the aura builders. And maybe she could build like Veil potentially, and maybe like Drums a bit. But otherwise, like if it does end up being very like mech heavy stuff like that, it's not usually what she does. It is what Dazzle does, though. He's another hero I will try. I think this Poison Touch is great for him. Even though the mana cost is going up, you always want it to be selective with your Poison Touch usage and get maximum value when you finally do cast it. And this 1 extra second, although that doesn't sound like a lot, makes it far easier to refresh it. And this ability is actually technically infinite value. You can refresh it forever until you can't, right? Until they stop you. So the easier it is to refresh, I think the easier it is to get this extreme value situations where you keep refreshing it for like 20 seconds. So even though it's a 1 second change, it should make it easier to chase and harass people. And it's especially important in the first couple. Oh, sorry, you can't see it because I like buffed it up. But like every time you hit, the slow gets stronger, right? So it's really about those first couple hits that are difficult to do. And after that, it becomes really easy because they get a lot slower until they maybe make their way in the trees. But until that point, that's like the hard part. So the fact that it's now 5 seconds should make that part easier. And then if they're not smart enough to like run to the trees, stun you, run, things like that, then you can just keep going and get a ton of value. And then naturally build into a mech and the Greaves and some other stuff. Dazzle good with like this early tempo stuff. It's just kind of like something he excels at with his kit. I think Dazzle could be in a good spot. Who else? Disruptor, I think, this is a nerf. I don't know. We'll see. He's not as, good as before just because the number changes, but he was kind of good. So he might just be like a decent hero now. Earth Spirit buff for the 5 of you that play Earth Spirit, right? I think you were playing no matter what the hero was at. So yeah, he's slightly better, I guess. Enigma nerfed. I don't know if any of you were playing Enigma support, but it is worse. Grimstroke. I don't think Grimstroke is amazing with the classic like Zoo meta and Wraith Pact builders, but now that that's nerfed, maybe we get some other offlane type heroes, other carry type heroes who Grimstroke does synergize better with. I think that's like more defining of why he's good or not. It's like he is someone who very much is connected to his lane partners and then like whoever he's going to play with. And if like the Inkswell, the ult, like if they don't make much sense, then why pick Grimstroke over someone else who doesn't need that kind of coordination? So I think it's more about who else comes out in this meta, and we'll see. Gyrocopter, I think, actually looks really good. He likes to build Tranquils into like Drums, Veil, and like I said, my theory is that those are good now. So I think that could be really good. He's also strong in the laning stage, which I think is a bit more important now. I think he did get nerfed some of the damage in the past patch, but that plus the shard, like, didn't really feel like it. Like, the shard is kind of wacky, So, like, Tranquils, Veil into, like, the shard, I don't know, something like that, right? It sounds really strong on paper to me for Gyro support, so let's give it a shot. Keeper, maybe he'll come back as a support. He can build the mech. He can, like, blast at the lane, get all the creeps. I don't know. Leshrac, so he is getting nerfed. If these numbers don't seem extreme enough, it's really this 1 second toggle. There's a trick to Pulse Nova, which you like constantly toggle the ult. So it like starts and pulses. It pulses, you turn it off and turn it on, and it double pulses because of that. So now this 1 second cooldown should prevent you from doing that. And that is like the mega nerf to the hero, in my opinion. Along with like a mild Bloodstone nerf. So I think Leshrac should drop off now that this is not in play anymore. Lion, 15 damage, cool, Marcy broke her legs, cannot jump nearly as far. This is tough because Rebound was a 1-skill wonder. Not as good as it used to be in the past, but it had to be a 1-skill wonder just because the new build was max sidekick and get your ult and kill people. Now, the raw damage potential from that combo is still there, but you're severely limited by this rebound change in terms of your mobility to catch up to people and actually use your like damage. So fair, she was probably one of the best heroes, if not the best hero in the last patch. So nerfing her quite heavily, you know, maybe reasonable, even though it's sad because I like Marcy, but you know, maybe it's time for someone else's time in the sun. It's probably still possible. I think people will still try it, and we'll just see like how bad this is or not. Monkey King support. This isn't a massive change to Monkey King support, but I'm curious if the item changes will be enough, because he doesn't really build the Wraith Pact. But you know what's a pseudo Wraith Pact? Is applying Mage Slayer with your ult in this aura. So I'm kind of curious if that'll like pick up as a like kind of a niche thing, and I might try that out. Who else? Nyx, nerfed. He was good. Ogre, slight buff. He wasn't being picked up that much. Primal Beast should still be a decent support, just not as easy to get out of things for free with your like your charge. But that's probably just fair. He was also a very strong hero, so I think he'll just be like a fine hero now. Who else? Rubik, bonus damage for free. Easy time securing range creeps and flag creeps with the bolt, and then the base damage buff. And Rubik, I'm going to commit to it for now until I feel like it's bad, but I do think playing in the lane more and getting more XP than you used to is good right now. And depending on the supports, like maybe more needed, maybe less needed, Rubik is a great hero for it, because the sooner you have your ultimate, the sooner you can steal a very powerful spell from the enemy and kind of have this extra value, right? Multiple powerful spells potentially. So I think Rubik actually likes this change where he gets high levels instead of sacrificing too much for his core. And now he's just going to be like more useful while standing in the lane doing that. So I will be playing Rubik, not just because I like Rubik, but because like I actually think it kind of makes sense. Who else? Shadow Demon. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Same with like Shadow Shaman, right? These are kind of like slight buffs. I mean, this one, like, yeah, it's a buff, but like many people were leaving this at like level 1 or 2 anyways and maxing Shackle. So like, I don't know how much that changes. Silencer nerfed to the radius size, so it's harder to use. Snapfire I could see being good. I actually think the shard is pretty powerful, but just difficult to coordinate. So in pubs, you know, I don't know. But I think in the pro scene, like a close and personal Snapfire with a mech could be cool, along with a new like level 10 talent. Not new, sorry, just like 10 extra damage. Just like a very up close and personal Snapfire, I think could be cool. Sven, you know, nerfed. He was kind of a niche support anyways, though. In fact, he was like specifically good because of Marcy, and now that Marcy's dropping off, I think Sven will drop off. Lich was also good because of Marcy, but I think he's good in like other cases as well. Maybe especially as this Wraith Pact change has been nerfed. Maybe he's like a home version of Wraith Pact with his W. So I think Lich will still be fine. I don't play techies that much, so I don't know. One of you guys tell me. Tiny radius change on the Avalanche. That's too bad for like support Tiny. But you know, he still kind of does what he does, which is like if you only need to hit one person and then like reposition them with toss, it's what he does. But you just can't control as big of an area and hit like multiple heroes. Treant buffed, already good in the landing stage with a high damage, right? And then the Leech Seed, pretty big buff to the damage and heal at the early levels, and then great quality of life change. Sorry, it's actually not a quality of life change, but it's going to feel improved quality. This is the buff to the cast range, which if you've ever played Treant, it is hard to stay in trees and use this spell just because it's a very short cast range. So 150 at level 4 is great, should make it a lot easier, and then 10 extra damage on your ult per second. So this combined with, he actually did like to build Wraith Pact, but he doesn't have to. He can build like drums, for example, and maybe like a blink, some other stuff. So I think Treant will be cool. I will be trying him, not just because I like Treant, but because like, you know, this Leech Seed change looks good. I'm excited to try it. Undying, I'm actually surprised, didn't really get changed too much, so I think he could still be good. Still strong laning stage. People were picking him less towards the end of TI. I think people were starting to figure out how to play around it a bit and valuing other things, but we're pub players, so still good in the laning stage and can build mech, some of those other aura items as well. So I think Undying will actually still be fine. I'm interested in trying Warlock with this increased upheaval damage. I think part of Warlock's issue is like his long cooldowns, which are still there, but everything's being buffed a bit. He is kind of good with these like early team fight auras if he has just like his bonds and maybe this like upheaval doing like a huge AoE slow and actually like pretty decent damage could be good. So I will try it out. I'll let you guys know. And then Wind Ranger as a support, some extra buffs. I don't think it massively changes the hero, but it's like just slightly better. So that's kind of like a quick run through of the heroes. There's other heroes that we didn't really talk about. Oops, wrong. Here, let's do this. I will also be trying Jakiro because, like I said, I think strong laners who build this drums, mech, or Veil as a support are all sounding really good. That's at least what I'm going to try to begin with. So Jakiro, Treant, Bounty Hunter. What else do we say? Maybe Monkey King with the Mage Slayer. Rubik sounds good. I think Crystal Maiden should still be okay, but maybe just not as good as before. I think that's a lot of them. Dazzle. Yeah, I mean, that's probably what I'll start with, right? I can't play every hero all at once. I'll probably start with something like that. But if you don't like those heroes, then you still have my idea on what I think is good and just decide if the heroes you like kind of fit that idea. Or maybe I could be wrong and let me know in the comments how your experience with the patch is going. So that's it. We successfully shortened the video by like 10 minutes. Thanks for crashing on me, recording software. So I will take that as a sign and end here. Thanks so much. Keep an eye out for future videos in the next couple of days with more updates. Bye.